How's it going, everybody? Welcome to my market update. I know I've been away from the channel for a bit, but if you watch the previous video, I've gone over exactly what I thought was going to happen, and lo and behold, we ended up touching the 1618 region of the tether dominance. And I know you might be questioning why it didn't touch it exactly on the day candles. If you go down to the lower time frames on the hourlies, it actually does touch it exactly at 1618, and that's where I exited my Bitcoin long entirely. And since that point, we've started to reverse from this area. Like I said, it's a 100% probability thus far through this market. And before you exit this video, I will tell you exactly what I think is a likely outcome for the markets moving forward. And it might not make a lot of you comfortable because we're very used to the market going up since April this year, right? But what I'm proposing next is based purely upon how I analyze my tether dominance chart, and I will use the macro markets in terms of the traditional S&P 500 chart to explain why the next move in crypto is likely to go down, right? It sounds insane because, Bitcoin's at all-time highs and whatnot, and people have been, championing the fact that, this is more likely to go to the upside, and it seems like a crowded trade. And I mean, by all, I guess they could be correct, and you shouldn't, exit your spot positions. I don't recommend that. I think you should still have your long exposure. We're in a bull market. Get those entries down low and ride those to the very end. But from a trading perspective at the moment, what are we sort of expecting? And let me get to the point before everybody loses interest. So let's have a look at this tether dominance chart. And I'll go over the rules once again so everybody has some clarity with how this works. So how I measure and how you should measure the tether dominance is using the swing high, swing low of the price action, right? And what it will produce is a 1618 level that the price will, the tether dominance will be going towards, ideally, right? And what happens is every single time the 1618 is tagged, there is a 100% probability that the tether dominance will reverse and go back to 1 at a minimum. Will it pivot from 1 and go back down, measuring the new 1618, same measurement taken here? It's only happened one time in the past, well, actually 2 times now, and that was in 2021, November, which was the final phase of the bull market there. Now, I've drawn a green line here because never have we reversed back to 1 3 times or twice and produced 3 drives. And what I mean by that is this red line. Never have we done that. And I think it's unlikely. What I do think is likely is the green line that you see. And what that is showing us, and by the way, if you're new here, I've been analyzing each move in the tether dominance tick by tick this entire way. So if you have any doubts, go in my previous video and I've explained this completely. Even the video before that, when we we're sort of over here, I said 1618, it will reverse back to 1 and potentially do another drive. Now I'm saying it's unlikely to go beyond this point. What does this mean for Bitcoin's price, right? And this will impact altcoins in a various amount of ways, depending on what you're in, because all altcoins are not made equal, and a lot of the charts are different. Some weaker than others, some stronger than others. But let's go to Bitcoin so we can have an understanding of the potential price action. All these levels are for demonstration purposes only. We can go over the exact levels as the price action starts to play out. However, what I'm expecting or suspecting will happen within the next couple of days, or sorry, the next couple of weeks leading into September, is a potential decline, right? I am staying long, by the way. You can see here I've got a long on Tau, and I think I might get rid of the near long, but my main long position is Tau. But I do have a short position on Ethereum, as you can see here, and that's just to hedge my Tau position. Has a stop on it that's really tight. I can go over quickly how I've done this. I think that this is a good level to short Ethereum because of the rebound zone here. Could be wrong. I've taken profits on a Doge long that I took previously to cover this if it were to get stopped out. But if it plays out as I'm suggesting here, then I'm just trying to remain delta neutral, essentially, right, on my Tau position. If anything more, because there's a higher, there's a bigger size on Ethereum, but in terms of the magnitude of its move, it's not going to be as volatile as a new altcoin or a less liquid altcoin like Itensa. So what I'm looking at here is, and I will get the tether dominance chart on the right side so you can see the inverse correlation or the inverse relationship between these two charts. And I do still think $150,000 is on the cards. But this is a wild card whereby this high area in tether dominance, it needs to produce a wave, like you can see, as you can see here, which we can measure the new 1618 out of, and that creates a large drive which causes altcoins and Bitcoin to do their final push. You're following, right? So this dump, or whatever the price action ends up being that is created by Bitcoin, it's probably going to end up pushing the tether dominance somewhere in this range, right? This could be anywhere, by the way. It could be down here, it could be down here, could be down here, could be down here, right? But the point is, the first wick down or push up, sorry, on tether dominance isn't likely to be the bottom. If we want a continuation to a new 1618, we need a wave-like structure that is going to give us a big enough push to bring the price up to the $150,000 region, which was my original measurement from the very, very, very beginning of this market. And I will use the low here just to be a little bit more conservative in our price targets for this cycle, right? As you can see here, the 4618 is around 145,000, and it might extend beyond that slightly, but that sort of aligns with that part of my thesis. And at the moment, there was another box that needs to be ticked, and the condition was that S&P 500 would be hitting this 2618 level. Let's ensure that this level is correct. It is correct. Cool, right? So now that we have the S&P 500 at the 2618 level, the 618 level is significant because in other expansions of the stock market, when measuring the lost decade, the largest wave, the 618 level, the significant 618 level, after the 17 to 20 year cycle that comes after the lost decade, is the point that the recessionary period begins, right? Am I saying that it's completely over? No, I'm just giving an optimistic take and combining a few charts here to provide context on what I think is going to happen. And should we be able to extend above this, I don't think it'll be very far. Sort of like what you see in the dot-com bubble here. There's a push, and then there is a lot of volatility around the range of the 618. And I do believe that perhaps that is what we're in for the next couple of months, right? As you can see here, the 618 level is tagged and it is rejected, retested, and it struggles, the price struggles to overcome that level. But the important thing we want to address here is the duration, right? The duration of this is 225 days. This one actually just rejects completely, but that has nothing to do with the initial touch of the 618 level. Let's go over here. There's an initial touch, a rejection down to the bottom, and a retest, which is around 200 days, right? I understand that this has happened only twice in the past, but indulge me for a second. We touch this level, perhaps we reject from this level. I do believe that someone else, I can't remember, I think it was like Bravos Capital, I don't even know what their channel is called, but Bravos Research went over the statistics of a push this quickly on the S&P 500 and the potential for a correction from this point, right? So there is a very, very high probability there will be a rollover on this S&P 500. And that sort of coincides with what we're seeing in crypto at the moment, because although I'm not going to address why the beta between the two is significant enough for the two charts to be correlated, right? So if we drag this out to 200 days, that kind of gives us until like January next year, right? Sort of aligns with what we see, especially I know that cycle theory, 4-year cycle theory suggests that we're probably going to top out in October, and that's true. Like low to October here, it's like 1,000 something days. Low to this high here is like 1,000 days, and if I'm not mistaken, low to the high here is like 1,050 days, give or take. I get it, right? October is sort of that sort of target. However, let's go to when these peaks on Bitcoin generally happen. December. This actually happens in November. December, right? Oh, sorry. I'll actually go to the top of that. Oh, it's December, right? December, November. And let's say, for argument's sake, we hit this around December, right? That sort of gives us that time for the S&P 500 to correct, Bitcoin to follow. Let's check this out. How many days is that? Around 100 days. We have like we have bandwidth of like 200 days, right? So add to January, but Bitcoin generally tops first. And from what history is showing, around that December-ish period, actually, here, right? So that sort of checks out at 160-ish days. Cool. So let's say the S&P 500 does do that correction. It does this and it goes back up and it gives us 150 on Bitcoin. Like this. All right, S&P 500 correction. It does its retest. Bitcoin does its final expansion. Altcoins potentially have their rally. Something else worth noting as well is let's have a look at tether dominance once again, and the times that I like using BitTensor because it's a chart that I look at a lot. Let's take all this garbage off, and let's take note of when BitTensor did its largest expansions, right? From here, you can see there's a large expansion on the tether dominance, right, which occurs, and that's what causes BitTensor to go up. Same with this move here and this move here. There's a large expansion, and same with this move here. The expansion isn't as large. Now that we have like no room, if anything, you could actually inverse this chart and it sort of looks like the BitTensor chart, right? If we know that this is a hard resistance level or support level in the tether dominance and it's unlikely to push up, we're probably not going to get the move that we're looking for out of altcoins instantly. What we do want is when Bitcoin's correcting, altcoins to potentially retain their dollar value by Bitcoin dominance continuing to decline. Not too heavily in terms of their dollar value being snuffed away with Bitcoin's potential larger correction. Once again, I am not saying to unload all your positions. I've already said in the previous video, have your core positions intact, de-risk and take profit. Probably, that's what I'm doing. I've already done. And be aware of the possibility that the market will correct in a larger way. So what's going to happen to a chart like BitTensor? Right now we're sort of in this kind of breakout region. However, we could see revisiting the lows here, right? And then bouncing up in a massive push, sort of like this. I'm just going to use this for argument's sake, right? Over the last month or whatever, like a big push up into the mid-$1,000 region, or even the, you know, 2,000-ish dollar region. I don't think it's going to go up there, but you know, we'll see, right? Close that for now. I hope this is like getting through to people, because you know, you want to hedge your bets because the odds are sort of against you if you have full exposure to the long side, is all I'm trying to say. And what we have ahead of us is a monster, potentially, waiting to happen. One more outcome that I want to address as well, and it's, you know, probably the least popular outcome. You thought that this was not a popular thesis. The next one is even worse. So the next one is that Bitcoin has topped and the cycle is over, because we just keep on going down this way or up that way. I keep on saying down because I read this almost as if it's like a dollar chart in inverse, but I digress. Let's go back to the tether dominance on the right side. Left side, apologies. We could be in for a situation similar to this in November 2021, where the second tether dominance, where the second 1618 is touched, and we go into a bear market where tether dominance just takes over and rips all the way down. The reason why also that I'm saying that you shouldn't get rid of your core positions is empty money supply, you know, liquidity entering the market, yada, yada, yada. And that has been, you know, correlating with a lag with the crypto market so far, right? So far. So that is what I wanted to say. What does this mean for your, I forgot about the altcoins and the levels that I drew for them. Remember in the previous video, I said that the 1618 tether dominance touch would potentially correlate or have confluence with the rebound zones of these altcoins. So what we have for Sol is a hard rejection off the rebound zone, like this, right? What we have for uni, same thing, it's a 0.618 of this full range, rejection. What we have for link, rejection. We could argue as well, like we could still be bullish, guys. Let's not be all doubtful, but just keep in mind the possible outcomes. We have the same for say as well, this range here. So we're at hard resistance is what I'm trying to say across pretty much all altcoins. We have the same for Sui, although it has tested it twice now, but also has rejected it twice. What else we got? We also have the same for Pepe. With these charts, some of these charts look like, you know, it could be the end of the cycle for them. So all these options that I'm presenting are possible. What I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of resistance here, and you're probably better off staying, you know, if you're not in sidelined until this level is broken for alts, the rebound zone, right? Stay out until that is broken, because we're sort of close there, but don't FOMO in. Like, there's a very, very interesting thing about the rebound zone 0.618. Like, generally when you see on the lower time frames, it looks like the chart is pumping, and this is when FOMO generally kicks in and the opposite effects happens, where people or whales start to sell and short from that point. Oh yeah, we have Doge as well, getting completely rejected from the 0.618. I have many more ideas. However, these are the most crucial ones and the most important ones that come to mind right now. In terms of Ethereum does look good in its BTC pair, and I do think that towards the end of this cycle, we do see it revisit this region, the 0.048 region, where it might correct here and then blast right up. Something else I want to address with Ethereum and why, you know, I've shorted it. One, obviously, you know, it's a hedge. It could get stopped at any time, and I'm okay with just riding out my exposure with BitTensor. However, let's get an Ethereum chart, which is like easier to read right now. Cool. Let's get this Ethereum chart. What we're seeing in Ethereum at the moment is an extremely explosive move to the upside with no correction into, you know, market resistance, right? Not just Ethereum's highs here, but just overall resistance. And what it's akin to, and what our structure is very similar to, rather, is apologies for the drawings everywhere. Let me remove this for the time being so you can see. It's actually very similar to this price structure here. Let me draw a gold box just so you guys can like see how similar it is, right? So we can see on the left side, you have your range that's created, expansion downwards, touching the golden pocket, expansion upwards, it marches up. This has a little bit more resistance. This is a bit of a, you know, a different situation. It's on the lower time frame, so there's a bit more volatility and obviously different conditions, but the structure still remains somewhat similar in a sense, right? Where there's a low that's created, expansion, correction to GP, and then a high that is created into resistance. And as I mapped out before, we're probably going to correct potentially into September. Not sure how long this is. It's not time-based situation in terms of anything that happens in between now and the end of the cycle. But I am looking for those 2 drives down on, or 2 drives up onto the dominance. That's why I put 2 bottoms here. It could be anywhere, right? It could be like down here to retest this high. It could be up here if the Ethereum BTC pair stays strong, right? And then the final expansion into October, November, wherever that might be, to 8,000, 7,000, wherever that is. The structure of this line is sort of what I'm thinking is possible. But yeah, this is just a think tank for me, and I'm just expressing everything that I'm seeing at the moment. I'm trading what I'm seeing. I do have hopes that the market is bullish still, right? And I'm positioned for that. Consider the other side of this trade. That's all. Thanks, guys.